check, good. So I'm Max Ceron, Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding Podcast. Podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding Podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association Podcast. My name is Max Ceron and we're here with a very special guest, a person I've known a few times for a while now. We've seen each other at different conferences and around the loop, and I know he was involved with his local chapter. We have Michael Klee here, who works for Lincoln Electric as a technical sales representative. Michael, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Max?
I'm good. It's nice and warm here in Regina. And how's the weather where you are?
It's warm, but storms coming in. I'm just
Storms are
watching
brewing
it through my window here. So, like I said,
And
if we end up getting cut off, you'll know why. The power's gone out.
well, as long as we don't get the witness you getting hit by lightning or something like that.
No. We should be good for that.
And where are you located?
I'm in Cambridge, Ontario. Beautiful Cambridge, Ontario.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. So, I've known you for a while. We've interacted quite a few times on a variety of different things. But for the people that don't know who Michael is, let's talk a little bit about, first of all, what it is you do right now. Your role at Lincoln. What is it that you do for Lincoln?
Sure. Yeah. I've actually just within the last couple weeks started a new role at Lincoln. So I've taken on a technical sales rep role for kind of central Ontario area. So it's a little bit different for me from what I've done in the past, but so it means a little bit less travel from what I had been doing, which is nice. And I get to kind of be involved in everything welding again, which is my my love in life. So yeah, it's a new role within Lincoln, but I've been with Lincoln for almost 5 years now. So
It's been a while.
yeah.
And then in the beginning, let's go to the beginning of time for
Sure.
Michael. Are you from the Ontario area? Were you born and raised in Ontario?
Yeah. Actually, not born in Cambridge, but raised in Cambridge. So we had a small break away from here. We lived in Calgary for a few years, and then we moved back to Ontario, and we ended up settling back in Cambridge, which I didn't think I would, but
Mm-hmm.
it's nice.
Just worked
Family's
out that
close
way.
by.
Yeah.
Yeah, family's close by, and we've got our kids that wanted to be close to family, so it's all right. It's growing on me now as I'm getting older.
Well, in my experience with people that work at Lincoln, most of the people I know who are technical reps or are involved with Lincoln, with what you do, are either past engineers or welders. They're kind of one or the other, or a mix of both. So, what's kind of your background getting into this job?
So I'm a Conestoga College grad from the Welding Engineering Technology program. So that's my schooling, I guess, for what I
Mhm.
did post-secondary. So yeah, but I've had kind of a mixed bag of jobs between manual welding, robotics, technologist kind of roles, and now into the sales position recently. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And so, what pulled you into welding initially? Like when you were sitting around wondering what to do, did you already have an established career before you went to Conestoga, or what pulled you into that program?
No, I actually, so my dad had like a tool and die machine shop when I was growing up, and so that was where I thought I was going. Spending my summers working with him. I think when I was younger, I thought I was going to go to university and do something. I don't know. I just thought
Mm-hmm.
that was going to be my path. But working summers with my dad at his shop, it was like learning machining, and it was okay. I didn't love it, but it was kind of cool. Um, and then I was a big skateboarder in my teenage years, so I had wanted to weld a skateboard rail, and we had an old busted welder kind of sitting in the corner of the shop, and one of the guys kind of showed me how it worked, and I thought, whoa, now this is cool. I can melt this stuff and stick it together. So we did a couple little projects like that around the shop, and I thought, okay, if I can learn to weld this way, and we also kind of at the same time that was happening, we took a lot of our tool stuff to be repaired at a local repair welding shop in Southern Ontario, and I got seeing what they do and the kind of neat stuff that was happening there with like TIG welding these like exotic
Mm-hmm.
metals, and guys welding with mirrors underneath these like weird cracks and crevices and repairing tool steel and laser welding and all this stuff. And I thought, oh, okay, this might be where
Yeah.
I want to go. So I got a job there, kind of cleaning the floors for a little bit, and then might have lied a little bit about knowing how to TIG weld because I thought, all right, I want
Can't
to
be that
learn.
hard.
Yeah, it was. But it worked out, and I ended up getting and learning from them, and took a night course on doing some TIG aluminum, and it just sort of fell in. And
Hmm.
after the welding started, is when I thought, okay, um, don't know if I want to weld necessarily for the rest of my life, but I do want to be involved in this industry, and that kind of led me to researching Conestoga and finding out about the course and landing there. So.
And then how long is the course that you took?
It was when I went there, it was a 3-year course, and it was just kind of one stream. It was a welding and robotics course. So, we did touch on inspection and quality and all that kind of stuff, but the course title at the time was welding and robotics. So that was kind of the focus. It's since split. They've got a couple different streams now. You can go either in towards like an inspection route or a robotics route. And now there are, I think, co-op options as well. So it has morphed over the last few years, but yeah, it was welding and robotics focused when I was there.
And then when you finished the program, 3 years is a decent amount of time to go to school.
Yeah,
What was the first kind of job you got? Like, did you have any issues getting a job, or was it pretty easy and you kind of fell into something right away?
I did. I did get a job right out of school, and I ended up working at Hitachi Construction in Guelph. So at the time, they were welding these giant dump trucks, like 300-ton capacity dump trucks for mines and
Hmm.
stuff globally. So that's where I landed at first as a weld tech, doing some supervisory stuff, helping the welders with procedures, um, ordering supplies, training new welders, hiring new welders, that sort of thing as they came in the door. So it was a cool little experience that got me to kind of uh, get exposed to more of what I had learned in school, where I could actually apply some of it, which was nice.
Do you feel like the weld tech course that you took kind of primed you for that? Not really a welder, like a full-time welder, but like the I guess the what would be the word? This the support system for the welder.
Yeah, definitely. It was, there was so much more to it, and I mean, I joke that I kind of hated it in school. That everyone said, we're not really learning a lot here. You're going to learn more when you get out into your first
Hmm.
jobs, and it really is true. But it did at least give you, a taste for what you're doing, because there's courses in that for operations management. There's courses for cost reduction, welded design too. So there's so many different paths and routes you can take from this. My classmates have gone into so many different roles within the welding industry since then. So it opens a lot of doors, but I feel like you get a little bit of everything and just enough to pique an interest to steer you where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely any type of welding course. There's always a sense that, and this might be the biggest difference between perhaps university, although university is kind of the same. But I feel like the gap is bigger in the trades, where you go to school for the trades and you learn lots. Like it's not like you aren't learning, like it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years of learning, but it's such the tip of the iceberg. Like you're really at bottom of the spectrum of when you get out of school and you start working. And I think you expect to be maybe a little bit higher. Like as a teacher in college, I had that a lot with students being like, well, I'm gonna go out there and I did really good in school and I'm gonna climb the ladder. It's like, oh, easy there. You're gonna be right at the bottom. Like all this training you took is just to get started, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and the really funny thing about that is that I laugh at this story the most, is that a good chunk of the last, thinking about before I came on to talk to you, that okay, it's been getting close to 20 years now, being involved in welding for me, which is weird to think about. But um, when when I was in school, I hated robotics. I really, really did not enjoy it. I thought this is not where I'm going to take my career, and I probably feel like I had that same kind of attitude. I'm going to take all these courses, and I'm going to do all these great things. Um, And funny enough, the bulk of my, at least the last like 15 years since I've come out of school, has been robotics and automation. And funny enough, I really like it now. And I met
Yeah.
up with one of my old teachers. We grabbed a beer once in Calgary. We happened to cross paths, and he's laughing at me because he taught my robotics course. He's like, "Look at your career path now. This is kind of a funny shift from when you were in school." I thought, yeah, I know. So yeah,
Yeah, you
you
never
get
know.
that bit, and it just, you know, wherever it ends up taking you. But
Well, and opportunities present themselves at different times in your life, and you're not really too sure. Like for yourself, how long were you at Hitachi building giant mining trucks?
it was a couple years. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely had the like young kid kind of job hop for a little while until I
Mm-hmm.
found what I really liked. So I was there for a couple years, and then they had helped. They had purchased a really big robotic cell to weld their dump trucks, and I got involved in that because again, I'd done robotics. That was my
Mm-hmm.
first real world scenario, and I liked it. Um, and then ended up leaving after a couple of years and going to Motoman to do more robotics.
So
Um,
yeah, you bumped to Yaskawa, and now you're robot world.
yes, and that was my life then. And but it was cool because there we got to do. It was kind of the a great world for me because a customer would bring me an application and say, "Hey, we want to try robotics. Here's this material. Can you guys weld it with a robot and make it work?" So I was able to, program the robots, but also develop that weld procedure in a sense to
Procedure,
say,
yeah.
how can we get this to work? And then, show it to the customer and do all that. So it was a cool thing of getting to play with the welding and, the video game at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, that's a quick jump though from school to a shop to into a sales kind of support training position, which is it when you're in school, all welders, any type of welding program, you don't really think about sales as being a possible outcome. And I mean, some of the best salesmen I know for welding were welders or engineers,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
ended up in sales somehow. And
Yeah.
so, like, it seems like you very early on, like, you're a couple years out of school, already you're kind of heading down that path.
Yes, yeah, and it was weird, but I think I realized at the time that hey, I like talking to people, and I like that. Yeah, we've done this weld procedure, and now I can show it. But when the customer came in, and I could kind of take that pride and ownership too, and really show them that look, like, hey, we can do this, and I can tell you all about how we did it, and what we're gonna do, and what the benefits are to it. And I thought, oh, all right, this is kind of fun. I get to weld, I get to do what I like, and now I get to talk to someone about it. So
And you
yeah,
get to
but
play with like the newest toys as soon as they come out.
exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of new technology. Then the nice part about being at Yaskawa, at the time we had, a Miller section in our lab, we had a Fronia
Mhm.
section in our lab, we had a Lincoln section in our lab. So it was cool for me still right out of school too to say, look, all right, I'm not just one power source and brand. I get to learn about the technologies from all these different manufacturers and get
Yeah.
to interact with all of them too, because they're all coming in. If I needed help with the Fronius system, the Fronius guys came in to help. If Miller, Lincoln, vice versa, everyone came to help. So I got to interact with all these people too, and the knowledge was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. Now, most of my friends that kind of were in the trades and then got into sales, especially when it's something specific, like whether it's, wires or robots or whatever, what happens is that some customer will walk in the door and poach them. And then all of a sudden they'll end up working for like one of the big clients that they, kind of were helping along the way. Then finally that client's like, maybe I just want you all the time. Did you see any of that happen in your career?
Yeah, well, that's actually how I ended up not being at Motoman. We and then eventually how I ended up at Miller Hobart after that. So with leaving Motoman, we had installed a system in Calgary, and the guy that and so I got to go out to Calgary and we installed the system and we were doing a week of welding training with those guys, and then the guys that we had trained all left their job, so the
Like quit,
company
quit.
then yeah, yeah. So, this is a time when I feel like, Calgary was still in that time of, like, the shop next door is offering you $1 more, so everyone was like,
That's like mid two
just
thousands around there.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
So those guys left to the shop that I was dealing with, they were calling me all the time. And I kind of made like an offhand joke with them one time, like, hey, this would probably be cheaper in your long distance bills if you just hired me. And it kind of went quiet on the phone for a few minutes, and then it was like, hey, like, maybe we should talk when you're not at work. And anyway, we ended up in Calgary for a few years, so it got us out there, and my wife and I got to move out, and uh, it was a great experience. So that
Yeah,
was
what was your experience as a Ontarian coming out to the scary West? How'd you like Calgary?
we loved it. Everyone knew we were from Ontario. I mean, really, we joked that I think we met 3 people actually from Calgary when we were in Calgary, because everyone
Mhm.
was just like a transplant in.
Yeah, like
Uh,
80% of the people in Calgary from Saskatchewan.
yeah. I feel like I saw more like Rough Rider plates than
Yeah,
Stampeder plates.
100%.
But yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. The shop I was at was great. It was a small little like machine and welding shop, and they wanted to
Mhm.
expand their welding. So we did a lot of work with more automation and getting them introduced to that, and kind of trying to optimize some of their processes because they had never really done welding. They were primarily a machine shop. So that was kind of cool for me to be able to help them along that path. And since then they've done a ton more. We did a lot of training with those guys, so they're still going quite a lot with a lot of new different welding projects and stuff. So it's a neat kind of a neat feeling to do that with them.
And back, kind of like back on the tools too, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Being able to do the programming, and getting to do some of this stuff with them, and working with apprentices, that was different for me, coming out of Ontario too and going to Alberta. Like when I learned how to weld, and what I was doing in Ontario, we didn't need the tickets, and we didn't need
Mhm.
the the red seal and the apprenticeship and all that. It was like the shop that I was at. Um, I learned how to TIG weld. I'm a pretty decent TIG welder. Never did any testing, so that I think it like boggled the minds of the people that I was working with in Alberta, that they're like, well, can you really weld? You're not a welder. Like, can I call myself a welder in Alberta now? Because I'm not
Not
ticketed,
really.
and I don't know. I'm not. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. I'm the supervisor. I don't know what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
so that was it was a neat experience, like working with apprentices and kind of getting exposed to that side of things, because I hadn't seen
Mhm.
that um, in Ontario. And actually, this is close to around the time when I think I met you at a conference, and then we were kind of talking about it, just the different things. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much in this
Mhm.
world that I have no idea. Like
Which
it's
conference was that? Was that the one in Edmonton?
yes, yeah. I think we met
Yeah.
at Edmonton there, and then there was another one in Winnipeg that I was
Yeah.
at with like on the council there for the meetings. So that was
Mhm.
yeah, but it was a neat world, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, how long were you at this company for? Sounds like it was pretty fun, but smaller companies usually have some turnaround to them. So,
Yeah. So again, it was probably, I feel like I had like the year and a half, 2 year mark for everything.
hmm
And again, kind of in a similar situation, then ITW had approached me and said, "Look, they're starting up some automation stuff." And I had worked with one of those guys at Hitachi doing some metal core trials, and we had kept in touch. And he said, "Hey, you've got automation experience, you've got filler metal experience. This is what we're looking for out west." And I mean, for me as a welding guy, when one of the big 3 companies approaches you and says, "Hey, you want to work for us?" Yep. So
yeah.
and the shop that I was in was in a good situation, and I could leave, and there were no hard feelings or anything. And
hmm
the shop actually bought from Miller, so it was I could still support them if I needed to.
Yeah, you're still on the book.
Yeah, exactly. So ended up there for a bit, which was good. So
So now you're working for one of the big three, ITW,
mhm.
that's the Hobart Miller world,
Yeah.
and there's more bucks and there's more investment and there's a bigger game plan. What was the learning curve coming into that, yeah, for you?
Through the roof, just
Yeah.
through the roof. It was crazy. I hadn't really been exposed to something like that before. It was a big. There's so much of a pool of welding knowledge to draw from in a company like that. It was a really good learning experience for me, working with the guys out west. They're a great team of guys. So I really learned a lot from those guys when I was there. It was just incredible. Getting a chance to see some of their corporate offices in the States, seeing the facility. That was my first exposure to seeing how wire was made, going down to Hobart and seeing this kind of stuff. So it was all really cool.
Mhm.
The welding nerd in me was like, God,
Neat.
yeah, exactly. This is just really neat. Everything is really neat right now.
And what was your job with Miller? What were you doing there?
I was a product specialist for automation and for filler metals. So, mainly metal core filler metals and Miller's like Panasonic kind of partnership with their robotic systems. So that was
Mhm.
the idea, was trying to introduce a lot of that out west, um, bringing in robotic systems out west and trying very hard to introduce that part of the world to automation and the way
Yeah,
that like things can be done better and more efficiently. And no, we're
that's the
not
exact combo.
necessarily
Yeah.
stealing welders' jobs. It's just shifting. So that was kind of a tight, like fine line of walking on out west with a lot of
Yeah.
this. But
And the West is very stubborn, very, very archaic in many ways in terms of how things are made. And honestly, it's the byproduct of wealth.
yep,
If companies do so well, why change?
exactly.
So it's when things get lean, which doesn't happen that much out in the West. And like, we're pretty resource rich, so you
Hmm.
know, when the country goes lean, we're not as lean as other places. We
Yeah.
complain a lot, but really we're still pretty good, right? Like we're
Still
still
doing all
okay.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that that's one of the biggest obstacles we have with trying to introduce new technologies in the West is that's like, why? It's working
Yep.
fine right now.
Yep. Yeah. That was a big challenge of trying to show, like you may not even notice. Like that's the thing I'm really coming across in the last, just 10 years of this, is that people don't even notice of when there's things wrong, and they're not even wrong, but that things could be
A
improved.
deficiency, yeah.
Exactly. And you're right. It's that attitude of, yeah, we've always done it this way. And yeah, it does work. But you don't realize that, like, hey, like how much money can you save, or how much little bit faster can you do it if you just tweak this, or, you
Yeah.
just change that. And, people have blinders on. And I make the joke all the time because I'm definitely guilty of it. But welders are just, I think, a notoriously stubborn group of people. And if we get something that we like, why would I want to change that? Because it works and I like doing it and I'm the one doing it every day. So, if it's not going to if I don't really directly see how it's going to benefit me right away, then I don't want anything to do with it. So I found that's been kind of an
Hmm.
experience.
I
It's
heard a
been,
saying once, a hard material, hard mind. It's
yeah, yeah,
we work with a hard, stubborn medium.
yeah,
And so we have kind of a hard, stubborn mentality
yep.
because if you got to move a 1 inch piece of steel and it don't move in the first 5 minutes, well, you are still going to be there for the next 4 hours trying. Like, I mean, that
Yeah,
it is what it is. I
yeah.
mean, maybe it'd be easier to automate the Jello making, industry because I don't know.
Yeah, something else. But it,
So
it is. Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it is changing though. Like I do
Hmm.
notice that, there's more people and there's more do my shameless, plug of you guys and what you're doing and everything. And what the CWB is doing is like trying to shift that a little bit more. And there's so many more people coming up now that are, pushing and promoting this. And I think there is a shift happening, which is nice now. So it
It
is
is.
just slowly.
It
It's
is.
a slow
And
shift.
like, I mean, I think it's what's happening is that there's better examples now of like, okay, um, you know, company X down the street invested and they invested into new stuff and look at how well they're doing. They just expanded.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of FOMO and being like, I want to get in on that a little bit. Whereas previous, it was like, look at Ontario. They invested so much into automation and then the bottom fell out and they're all
Right.
unemployed now. So
Right.
how did that help them?
Right.
Where's the automotive industry?
Right.
Where's these industries that invested so heavily into robotics? Didn't save them, but
Right.
that's not apples to apples, right?
No,
And
it's
that's
not.
it's not the same thing. So it's like
No.
you can't really use that as an argument, but from the outside, the uninformed mind can, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Now, in terms of, you're working for Miller,
Yep.
you're getting deep now. This is like You're working for the big boys. You got lots to learn. And how was your tenure there? How long were you at Miller? And what was kind of your path within that company?
Yeah, that I had when I was there, I was looking after kind of Western Canada for that kind of stuff. So it was what I thought at that point in my life, a lot of travel, kind of going between, Winnipeg to Victoria, Edmonton, Saskatoon, all these kind of places
Mm-hmm.
around. Um, so that was good. It was about 2.5 years, and then kind of right where so it was a good, growth in that time, and we did all right. But then kind of as I was nearing the end of it, things were starting to kind of slow down again a little bit in out
Mm-hmm.
west, and having a robotics guy, and it wasn't a big mover at
Quite
the time,
hitting.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was kind of a victim to a layoff. Um, but they were great. They, and kind of how it all happened, it went down nicely, and how I ended up at Lincoln after that was so good and so fast that it was such a just like crazy transition to move back to
Did you
Ontario.
did you apply to Lincoln?
No, no. What's funny? I used to kind of on social media a lot, and especially LinkedIn. I didn't understand
Yeah.
LinkedIn. I thought LinkedIn was
Yeah. This
stupid.
is boring.
Yeah, I was like, I don't
Right?
really know why this is here, but LinkedIn actually got me my job at Lincoln. I had changed my title on there, whatever, to weld technologist seeking employment, and one of the guys in the lab at Lincoln was looking for a weld tech, and he shot me a message, and he said, "Hey, this is what we're looking for. Are you interested?" And I thought, yeah, this is kind of cool. So the position was just for the aluminum division, and I didn't even know that Lincoln had this.
Mm-hmm.
But so Lincoln has a aluminum division right in Mississauga, right near the airport. Um, and I said, "Yeah, I'm interested. I can come and play in a lab. This is like my first year at school again, but I'd be getting paid to do it. Yeah, let's come and do that." And I happened to be in Ontario, kind of like in between, and I was able to come in for an interview, and they hired me. And 5 years later now, almost,
You're still there.
I'm still with the
Yeah.
company, so it
And this
worked
will
out
be
really
like the
well.
longest tenure you've been with
It
anyone
is.
now.
It is,
Yeah.
yes. I feel like I've actually now finally found
Good. Your niche.
my like place of where I want to be and what I want to do, which is nice. So,
So I gotta
um,
ask, because
mhm.
you've gone from east to west, back to east, your wife must really love you.
Yeah, yeah, she does. That being said, I was kind of told after this last move that we're not moving again anytime
That's it.
soon. So yeah, we're we're in Cambridge for a little while. We're in Ontario for a while now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Like, we're going to
Yeah.
Calgary. Oh, we're coming back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were there for 5 years, so it was at least a
Hmm.
decent amount of time that
That's a
we
good
had kind
run.
of just settled.
Yeah.
But moving out there before we actually got married was the trick. I had to kind of negotiate that with the first company of like, I'm getting married in 3 months, but you want me to start now. So that was some fine dancing to make it work. But
That's Polly. I think it was 2017 or 2018. We got a Panasonic Miller robot in Regina. And
okay.
so you must have just been on your way out, because I think we worked with Don Duncan at the time, and he just
Yeah.
like connected us with the robot guys. And I
Yeah.
don't I don't remember meeting you then.
No,
So it
I
must
hadn't
have
gone
been
in
the
there. So it
person
must have
right
just been that
after.
transition. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I started with Lincoln January 2nd, 2018. I started with
Okay,
Lincoln.
must have
So
been
yeah, it
right
was
around that turn,
yeah.
because we actually got one of the touring robots that used to be
Mm,
a part of the large Miller touring set,
yep.
um that because they were kind of shutting down like their touring program.
Yeah.
And we bought one of those because it was used. It had cut a few
Yep.
hours on it, and we got it for a really good deal. So
Yeah.
I remember, because Don was like, "Hey, well, we're doing this tour. Do you want us bringing the robot by on the tour?" And I was like, "Sure." And how much to make it be the last stop on the tour? And he's like, "Hey, that's not a bad idea." So
That was a good Don Duncan there too, by the way. That was a nice almost a good impression of how he would say that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's an awesome dude. He's an
Oh
awesome dude.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
great guy.
So now you're back east, and
Yep.
you're at Lincoln,
Yep.
and you're now away from sales, out of the corporate bubble of having to move machines. You're kind of back in the lab. which is a very different vibe, right? There's
Huge.
different expectations, different pressures, and it's not so much public, you know, collaboration or communications, which you said is something that you love to do. So
Yeah,
what was it like getting back in the lab, kind of into the bubble of isolation?
it was it was so it was a weird. There was kind of a mix of a good and a bad transition because it was really good to get back and kind of re-love the technical side of things because I hadn't done it as much as I had wanted to, I guess. Like I did, but it was different where this was like
Mm-hmm.
just nose down. I'm doing experiments in the lab, and I get to play basically now, which is just neat because there's all this new cool technology and I just get to play with it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if customer applications come in, that's a bit more serious. But if I'm in the lab and I'm not working on something for a customer, I'm experimenting. We're playing with
Just pulling
waveforms.
data,
We're
yeah.
yeah, working on the robot, welding semi-automatically. I'd never MIG welded aluminum before I started there before, so that was like a learning
Mm-hmm.
experience. So it was good. The hard adjustment was, yeah, getting away from the customer interaction, and then also, for 2.5 years before this, having a home office to now working in an office every day, like coming to a plant every day,
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh,
Kind
all
of Fred
right.
Flintstone, hats on, out the door at 5 in the morning, like.
Yeah, and back to the GTA traffic in the
I,
Toronto area. So that was that part was tough, but the learning again there, my like learning curve just went through the roof. Because again, it was a new processes, it was new material, it was new everything, a new
mm-hmm.
company, just everything was just like the learning was crazy. So, and it gave me an opportunity. I actually got a chance to speak at FabTech,
Mm-hmm.
and then speak at CanWeld conference, kind of in the same year. So I did the Winnipeg CanWeld and FabTech in Atlanta. I got a chance to play, and then I thought, well, hey, why don't I write a paper on this
Mm-hmm.
and do a
Submit it,
presentation and
yeah.
submit it? And both FabTech and CanWeld said, yeah, come on out and do this. So it was kind of a daunting thing. I'd never been to FabTech, so I got to go down and do that and actually present to a room full of peers. I thought, oh
Yeah,
gosh.
that's fun.
And it was so much fun. And doing it at Canweld too, is that was actually the room was bigger at Canweld. I had more people come to see the presentation there in Winnipeg.
I
So that
remember.
was, yeah, it was more of a, oh gosh, this is a full room here right now. But it was so much fun. So it kind of really reignited my welding love, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
All right. Well, this is a great time to take a break. When we get back, we're going to talk more about what you're doing, what you did at the aluminum lab, for Lincoln, and then what you're doing now. So everyone stay tuned. Here we got Michael Klee with us from Lincoln on the CWB Association podcast. We'll be right back after these words from our advertisers. And we're back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and we got Michael Klee with us here from Lincoln Electric. Right before the break, we were talking about his transition back to Ontario and him starting at this aluminum lab, which you have promised me many tours, and I'm always somehow we don't align. Somehow
yeah,
we now don't align on that because I want to see it. I've heard it's
yeah,
very impressive and it's very unique and it's something that's in Canada, which is, I love seeing big companies like Lincoln invest on this side of the border. So,
yeah.
what is this lab? What do they do? What happens there? And what's the kind of the purpose of it inside the big picture of Lincoln?
Sure, yeah. So and I still hold you to that. I know I'm not in that division anymore, but next time you're here, if we can make it work,
Mhm.
definitely love to have you there.
I'll
So
be there the third week of October, I think, just so you know, around the
sweet. We'll
around the
figure that
20th.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. Um, so yeah, and I had no idea the scope of this place until I actually came for my interview too, and I thought, oh my God, this exists here. So yeah, we that we, as far as kind of our knowledge and that we know, we're unique in the welding world is that we're the only facility globally that's got a fully integrated um, smelter coming from raw aluminum ingot in one side of the building, all the way out to spooled and packaged wire leaving the other side of the building. So it's everything.
Mhm.
It's a terrible place for a tour in the summer because we've got a furnace running and melting aluminum. So customers ask for tours from like May to September. I'm like, no, no, just not going to bring you through that part of the building because it's awful.
I'd love
Um,
that.
it
I'd
yeah,
yeah.
it's cool. It's really cool to see. It's just
Yeah.
it's a hot building.
Yeah.
But yeah, where where it gives us a lot of control over what we're alloying, how we're alloying. We've got full process control with with the quality side of it. It's everything, and then having like a dedicated aluminum welding lab right attached
Mhm.
there too. So we do all of our quality control for welding there. We do all of our conformance testing. CWB, AWS, all of our maritime stuff is all done there as well. Right
Mhm.
as the wire comes off,
Yeah.
we're able to weld it and do it. Um, and then also, it's a bit of like an aluminum R&D lab there as well, and customer applications too. So it's a really dedicated, cool thing. And then the nice part about it is that everything aluminum from Lincoln Electric globally comes out of Mississauga. So it all comes out of Canada. All the wire
Really,
that
I got a
goes
spool
to
of Lincoln aluminum in my garage right now.
made in Canada.
I never even
Um,
noticed.
yeah, made in Canada sticker should be on there, and all the way over to Europe, India, Korea, everywhere that
Mhm.
you'll have Lincoln aluminum wire. It's made in Mississauga, so it's a cool thing.
Now, when you're talking about process development in terms of wires and testing and welding, having the welding there, or I would say the welding, the aluminum production right there, are you creating both coupons and filler metals, or are you buying already pre-certified, aluminum, you know, plates or channel or angle or whatever it is you're working on, and then
Yeah,
using your special derivative wire?
yeah. We're
Okay.
buying the material, so it is a wire mill and a rod mill. It's not like we
Okay.
don't have any plate forming or extrusion or anything like that. Um, yeah, just the wire we're doing.
Hmm.
Material
And
will
then
source and do that, but yeah,
I always in my mind, because I worked at Evraz here in Regina, we have a huge steel
yeah,
mill, right?
yeah,
And I worked there for almost 10 years on and off between different companies. So I love, like you're talking about the heat. I know that heat of furnaces and and
yeah,
and steel production, and I kind of dig it. Like it's kind of like Doom, the video game Doom. It's
yeah,
very much
yeah,
like that in my mind, like
yeah.
sparks and fire and giant machines, and I love that stuff. And I always, because I was never smart enough or cool enough. I never got to be a part of like the R&D world. I was like the repair welder fixing things. I always had this vision of like mad scientists with like a little bit of cobalt and a little sprinkle of titanium, and what'll we get? Which I'm sure it's not nearly that random, but what's it like in the production of like these alloys to aluminum? What is that like? Like, do you guys get to just play and be like, let's throw a whole bunch of something in it and see what happens, or is it a lot more controlled than that?
It's definitely a lot more controlled than that, because our furnace runs could get pretty big, so we don't want to play around with all of a sudden we got 40,000 pounds of cement. So it's
Which is
definitely
why I
more.
guess I never got to do it, because I would be
Yeah.
me being like, let's
I would
throw this
definitely
in
be the
there.
one to want to try it too, though. Just like, what can we get away with?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like controlled playing. So we've got our metallurgy team there. We've got our engineers working with us, and then there's the welders that are in the lab too, saying like, "Hey, what if we tweak this and this to get this result?" And so we do get to play with that kind of stuff. But it's controlled playing, I'll call it.
Well, and the advancement of the consumables of aluminum was late to the game.
Mm,
All right, because I've been welding for 30 years. 25 years ago, all you'd be able to find is these terrible arc aluminum rods that you
yeah,
would buy, and I don't even know who made them back then, but they would sputter and explode, and it was
yeah,
like basically you'd just melt aluminum blobs onto something and
yeah,
then peen them into shape and hope
yeah.
that it plugs whatever hole was there. Like, eh, and then wire came out, and then
Hmm.
wire processes came out with the AC/DC machines, because that was the missing link there, was
Yeah.
having the AC work with the wire. And like TIG's always been there, but I mean, at that time, TIG was like always so slow and so, you can't do it on site, and it's not in repair, and you can't do it in dirty areas. So it was like only for fancy, you're building a trailer in your garage or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Now today, there is so many variables of aluminum consumables,
Hmm.
whether it's filler wires, stick TIG or whatever. and they can do so much more out of position, the different melting points, the solidification points, the elasticity points.
Yeah.
Like, did you get to be a part of this process? And did you get to see these kind of ideas come to fruition? I would love to see how that works.
Yeah, I mean, without getting into too much like detail of it, but yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
we did basically the entire time I was in the lab, we were working on a project, kind of doing some changes to some of our 5000 series filler metals, so like the 5000 series aluminums, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a pretty big change, but we had to go through a lot of like, how is this going to affect first and foremost the welding?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of work back from there. And like, if it's, we're going to make this change that on paper sounds great, but if it welds like garbage, it's not going to work.
No one's gonna buy it.
So no one's going to buy it. Exactly. So, we got to I became a really good welder from that point, just because it was like T joint after T joint after groove to just prove out that yes, what we were changing and what we were doing was going to work, and was going to still give like a good welding product. So that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of neat from that point to, yeah, get to play with this, and we did make a change, and it's basically all of our product now is kind of based on some of that changes that we did 4 years ago. So,
Mm-hmm.
and throughout the years before I got there, they did a lot. Our bulk packaging system is unique to Lincoln, for how we feed our bulk package for aluminum. Um, and it's all kind of driven by tests and stuff that we do in our lab there in Mississauga, just from guys saying, "Oh, nope, this is not going to work," or "Hey, holy cow, this might work. How
Yeah.
now if it does work, how can we work backwards through our process to like, get back to our furnace guys and say, hey, can we do this? Will this work in
Yeah.
our furnace?" So yeah, it's a cool process to be a part of.
Now, in terms of the you're talking about creating these aluminum filler wires and materials. What about the sales side? Is there? And I guess this is kind of a two-part question. One, is there always an onus on keeping prices to a certain level? Like, does that actually filter down to the lab part, or does the lab part not have to worry about the money? Just like, let's just get the product good. Let's let the company figure that part out.
Uh, we're involved a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of it, especially in the last couple of years and globally, no one's been immune to this. Like everyone's company has been it's been
Mm-hmm.
nuts because the material cost has really
Mm-hmm.
gone crazy. Steel,
Like, if
aluminum,
there was some
everything. Like,
magic ingredient that dropped the price by half, is that something that's
oh,
thought
everyone
about?
would.
Or
Oh yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we're looking at that constantly because so much in the last couple of years has been out of everyone's control, whether it be steel prices, aluminum prices, alloying costs,
Mm-hmm.
those kind of
Energy costs to
elements,
run the furnaces. Like,
energy
yeah.
costs, exactly. So there's always things that we're doing, like our team, the guys in our foundry are always working out what can we do to make the furnace run more efficiently. How can we get what kind of processes can we do and develop from the welding point of view to make things run more efficiently, that to offset the cost of the material, because we have no control over that. So yeah, like we're definitely involved. It's a group effort for sure. Everyone's got to kind of chip in some way to figure out how to
Mm-hmm.
make it work.
Okay, and that my two-part question just turned into three as you were talking. The second point I wanted to bring up in this process was environmental restrictions. So
Mhm.
as environmental moves, like aluminum's got a bad rap for being quite toxic, especially in the beginning, especially the electrodes, like arc electrodes.
Yeah,
There was a lot of bad stuff in those rods to make them burn.
yeah,
Now, with the environmental restrictions consistently getting tighter and tighter, and in some
especially in the
cases,
prairies.
yeah, especially well, we had none for 30,
Yeah,
40 years. And now
yeah,
they're rolling in and everyone's like, what do you mean I can't get this rod anymore? And
yeah,
everyone's hoarding their, 2% thoriated like, tungstens in their toolboxes and not telling anyone about it.
yeah.
So how does that affect as well in the lab? Like, is legislation happens at the government level, and you'll have to look at every single ingredient on your plate, right?
Yep. Yep. So I mean, we're all fully compliant to everything that is there now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got, environmental testing that takes place in Cleveland. So that, I guess, that portion of it gets done down there because there's just a bigger resource
Mm-hmm.
pool to do it. But during this project that we did, 4 years ago, everything that we did to change any kind of ingredient was looked at. How does this affect the fume coming off? How is this? What's the byproduct of when this again is great on paper. This will do a really cool thing, but what happens when it crosses an arc? What happens when it's now being burnt up in that shielding gas and all that sort of stuff? So everything is looked at where it's a very, very in-depth process to make sure that everything is going to be compliant and not harmful to anyone. Yeah, it's all looked at.
And then the third point, and I think this might be a little bit more unique to the bigger companies, like Lincoln, is that they're in the game of everything. So they're not just making consumables, and they don't just have like the consumables lab. On the other side of the fence, they're making machines and coming up with new waveforms and new options and new guns and new feeding processes. So there's got to be some type of a back and forth seesaw there where, oh, they came out with a new machine. Well, that's going to affect all these wires. Or now do we have to develop a new wire to match the capabilities of that machine and vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, we work really closely with the team in Cleveland as well, and especially in the last couple of years, because again, like globally, there's been such a shift towards like aluminum, lightweight, EV, all that sort of stuff. Like, so we've done a lot in the last few years just to focus on different waveforms and machines and how they can benefit. The kind of nice thing or unique thing about like aluminum versus steel too is like steel, like metal cores or flux cores, an example, right? Like they'll still meet like an E71T classification, but everyone can kind of pop in a little bit of this and a little bit of that just to kind of make it unique, right? Like a Hobart wire, a Lincoln wire, an Air Liquide wire, an ESAB wire, they're all going to run a little different. They all meet that classification.
Yeah.
Aluminum's a little bit different in that sense because like a 5.3, 5.6, you can't really play with the alloying, right? Like the AWS is kind of set, like this is what the criteria to meet this aluminum alloy is. So there's less so of that when we come out with a new waveform. Like say a 5.3, 5.6 or a 5.183 or a 5.556, they all weld similarly enough that a waveform or a machine change isn't really going to change it too much. We just kind of did like general aluminum waveforms. So we've developed them and we've made them a hell of a lot better in the last couple of years. So out of necessity, because there is such a global shift towards that now, right? So
are we going to see a hyperfill aluminum version? Twice the aluminum, half the power.
Yeah, I don't know.
See, I just did the commercial right there. Like, I mean,
you did, yeah. We've all talked about. I don't know.
Because the hyperfill's pretty cool, man. I mean, I didn't believe until I saw it. I was like, hey, this thing actually works.
And have you been able to try it yourself?
Oh yeah, no, I did like I filled like a 1-inch groove weld in like one shot. At like 26 or 26 volts. I was like, what? How? I don't get it.
I know it's goofy. It took a long time for me to really.
And I even spun the gun around to see if it would screw up because in my brain I was like, oh, that'll screw it up. No, it worked.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I don't know for aluminum. We do different things for aluminum to kind of make it better. So we've done like large diameter aluminum wires.
I was about to ask, like they've gotten bigger. For a long time it was pretty restricted in diameter.
Yeah. So without getting into like details, because again, it's our R&D type stuff.
It's a little classified.
We've played with like open art. This is what it was so cool and what drew me to this lab is that we played with doing 2-inch thick aluminum pieces in 2 passes, because we'll use a 4mm GMAW aluminum wire, like a 4mm wire, and run an open arc process.
That's like almost 5/32. Like you're ripping that in there.
It's big. It's actually, and it's not even. It's like a buried arc process. So the metal transfer is actually happening like in the plate. It's a lot of amps and it's goofy. It was really.
I can't really wrap my head around that because I would just envision the whole thing just collapsing from the heat.
Yeah, it's goofy, and when you come in October for the tour, I'll show you. We have the coupon, like we've got the coupon in our lab, so you can see the cross section. It's silly. So we do different things like that, just larger diameter, and we've got like a part number and a readily available like 1/8 GMAW wire that we can run. it's not a handheld process anymore, right? But
Mhm. Unless you want to be doing this all day.
yeah, or on a tractor or a robot or something like
Yeah,
that, it's a
yeah.
good option. So yeah.
So you're doing all this really cool stuff at the lab. You're
Yeah.
like, I mean, it sounds like some top secret, sci-fi stuff going on in there, which I'd love to see.
Yeah.
But you just at the beginning of the show, you said you just started a new role 4 months ago. Still within
A couple
Lincoln
weeks
though,
ago.
but or a couple weeks ago,
Yeah, yeah.
as a technical sales rep. So
Yeah.
what pulled you out of the lab now? It sounds like the lab was kind of super fun.
It was. So I had another transition because in the lab, I again had the realization that I missed talking to customers and I missed
Mm,
doing the salesy type thing. So still within the aluminum group, I had an opportunity to do some sales type stuff, which was a really cool experience too because it was a global sales position. So I had looked after Europe, and I got to travel to South Korea, and I got to travel to India and do technical support and welding training and all that in these different parts of the world. So that was pre-COVID. I wanted to try and get
mhm.
through the podcast without saying that word, but that was
I
pre-COVID.
didn't
So
say it.
I know. A lot of travel, and it was a really
Mhm,
cool, again, just great eye-opening experience to see how things happen in different parts of the world. And I know you've had that experience too, and you've been able
mhm.
to see some cool welding in outside of North America, and it's
Yeah.
very different, but also the same. Like it's a cool. That's why I like the welding, is that
Yeah,
it's a
the science don't
cool.
change, just
No,
the
just
way it's done.
how it's done, and how parts of the world look at safety or lack of
Mhm.
safety, and so it was cool. So then, the last couple of years have happened. Travel obviously was not happening. I got used to being home. My kids got older and got used to me being home. And I realized too that, okay, you know what? I want to see Lincoln's this amazing company without getting on that and like beating the drum of my company that I work
Mhm.
for. But like, they've been around for a long time, and there's a reason they've been around for a long time, and they've done a lot of really cool things within the welding industry. And I thought, wow, I really have only seen this little portion of Lincoln with the aluminum. I want to see what else is there. And it kind of worked out that there happened to be an opening in Ontario. um, and again, just with a shift and wanting to stay within Lincoln though, and just expose myself to the hyperfills and the different kind of things, and see some sub arc again, and
Mhm.
um, remembering that I really like welding, and I thought, okay, I want to
Yeah.
see what else we can do and what else we have. So that's what kind of led me into this. So it
And so
was
now what's the day today now?
customer visits. We're getting back out there, and I feel like we're doing it hard now, trying to make up for the last couple of years. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of customer visits, which is good again to kind of see, even within Ontario, the different
Mhm.
industry segments that I'm visiting. From rail cars to automotive to
Marine,
shovel
yeah.
buckets to agriculture, even a little
Mhm.
bit. It's a cool thing. So that's a lot of it right now. It's a lot of training for me right now, just to kind of bring my brain up to remembering how to weld steel and what spray transfer is, and what hyperfill is and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it's
And all the new machines too, like all the
yes,
toys, right?
yeah. We've been talking again to a couple of my friends from school that I went to school with, and we finished 12, 15 years ago from school now. So it's our exposure to Lincoln. We're all kind of laughing about it because we all, I think, kind of came out of it. Like we had at the time at our college. Now it's different now, but when we
Mhm.
went there, there was like one Lincoln welder in the back corner, this like old brick of an STT machine, and everyone hated it. No one went near it. And so I was talking with some of my classmates again the other day. I said, man, it's changed so much. And how welding has changed so much in the last 10 years is just, it's insane. It's the innovation,
Mhm.
and what's grown so much is just, it's just incredible. It's really incredible. So yeah, it's a big.
It is, like right before I left college, we had just invested in a couple brand new STTs, the new ones, and
Yeah.
and we started running so we tend to let the first years kind of run on a bank of older machines,
Yeah.
and then we save like the good machines for when people start getting to their third year or like specialty programs. And I was always in charge of 30 years and upgraders, so people challenging their red seal, which in the West, red seals is a big deal. Like
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
wants to get there.
I know that now.
Yeah. So, and a lot of training centers, and I really don't want to like throw mud. Like it's not about throwing mud, but a lot of training centers or even welding instructors have this concept of you can weld on anything, like any machine, new machine, old machine, it doesn't matter. I differ in my way of thinking. Yes, you can pass any pre-qualified test with pretty much any machine if you got time to figure it out and dial it in. But if you do have access to new technology and new machines, your chances of success go up like exponentially, right?
Yes.
So, for
Yeah.
example, the open root MIG test that's part of all the Red Seal tests in Canada. There's one plate that's it's a 1 GF open root MIG. It's a short circuit root with a fill and cap and spray. That's a standard Red Seal exam for anywhere, any province in Canada. It's one of
Yeah.
the 6. I was started running the route in STT. So no more of this like, okay, let's set it in back and forth, watch the keyhole. You'd spend a whole day just running demos so people like they're not going, it's like turn it on, go to, you start at 0. If you go plus, it pulls the puddle up. If you go minus, it pushes the puddle down. Pretty straightforward. And just keep the wire in the middle like a
Yeah.
dippity dip head and just pull it across. And
Yeah.
they pass every time. And it's
Yep.
like, someone was like, well, is that legal? And it's like, it's pre-qualified is pre-qualified.
Yeah.
We got the filler wire, we got the machine, we're within all the parameters. A pass
Yeah.
is a pass. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
like, why would you not? Like our pass rates went up like 30% because of just new machines. And it's not because we were making better welders or we were cheating. It's just the technology available. Like just use it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. I agree. If it's there and you can see it and use it, why not use it? Right. It's
Mm-hmm.
and they're so much more efficient now and everything with that too. So it's just why wouldn't you? I guess that's
Yeah.
the question. Like why wouldn't you
Stubborn.
use it if it's available? Yeah, exactly. Full circle.
Full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about your involvement with the chapters. You said Daniela
Yeah.
voluntold you for this
Yeah.
gig. She's the
Yep.
chapter chair for Kitchener there, and
Yep.
she's the and you were I think the past chair for Kitchener, we're correct?
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
what pulled you into that aspect, which is something we have people come on this show podcast that have been welding for 40 years in Canada and have never heard of the association,
Right.
which is weird because my dad was a welder, so I've known about it my whole life.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what pulled you in and when did you, I guess, start getting into this CWB world?
Yeah, I got involved like way back in school. So my teachers were all really good, and there at the time it was the Golden Triangle chapter, and
Mm-hmm.
some of these guys had been around since like CWA, and then what was it before? If my
The
teachers are
Welding
listening,
Institute of
sorry,
Canada, WIC,
that's the
and
one. Yeah, there
yeah.
you go. So like some of these
I have
guys,
the books here from WIC still
it's
from my dad.
amazing.
Yeah.
So they were involved from then, and that was their biggest thing is the networking side of it and just being involved in the welding industry. And I really liked that. And it was a cool way to just get out and kind of chat with like-minded people and see what everyone was doing. And everyone part of this chapter was from different industries. So it was a cool kind of exposure again. Um, so I was involved while we were in Ontario. Right after school, I got involved in the local chapter and, planning meetings and all that kind of stuff. And we had some good events. And then when I moved to Calgary, we kind of fell out of it. We had our kids. I just didn't have time with travel and all this kind of stuff. Um, and we moved back to Ontario, and we knew that I was kind of doing that office job for a little bit. I thought, okay, well, I'll have some time. So I reached back out to the local chapter and kind of tried to revive it again. And I guess in being the one who is kind of poking everyone to revive it again, I was again sort of dropped into, all right, you want to get this going, then you're going to chair this chapter. All right.
Yeah.
So we did, and we got events going again. We had some good events going at places local to us. We did some cool kind of specific topic things, and then we did some kind of cool little like industry panel type things where we had an industry 4.0 like panel discussion where we had some guys from Miller, from Lincoln, from Fronius come out, and everyone kind of give their talk as just like an open panel type thing, which was neat for us. And we did it at a local brewery, which was cool. It was a really neat atmosphere and a great turnout. I don't know who came for the beer and who came for the welding talk, but
Doesn't matter.
people came. So
Yeah.
so we did that, and I stayed involved, and it was really good. And then when I started traveling again, I thought I got to step out of the chair role. So Tyler, I think he's been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Tyler came in and did the chair role for a while, and when he moved on, I came back to help out for a little bit as the chair, and then we thought,
And I think Tyler went west, didn't he?
Thunder Bay.
Oh, did he? Okay, yeah. I was
like
trying to
the,
keep
the
track.
West Ontario sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different
Almost
world
Manitoba.
up there.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Manitoba-ish. So yeah, and then I've been still involved, and again, the last couple of years it's been different and weird, but still been involved to a point, but just couldn't do the chapter chair, and Daniela had the energy and the
Well, I kind of volunteered her too, so
well, I think we all did in the chapter.
Yeah.
We were all like, who's gonna do this if I leave?
Yeah.
You.
I was chapter chair for Regina for almost 10 years, and that's exactly how it happened. I showed up one day being like, hey, I want to get back involved. And there was a bunch of older guys that were just about ready to retire. And they're like, oh, young guy, kind of interested. Hey, you're the chair now. It's like, God dang it. See what happened?
Yeah, it's exactly it. But she's doing a killer job. She's doing an amazing
she's
job
awesome.
with the chapter. So yeah, it's good. Everyone's kind of happy that it went to her. We're like, oh, this is perfect, because it's
So in your travels, across Canada and being a part of a lot of different industries now, what is it that the chapters could do better? What is it that we could maybe get out there to get more people signed up? And it's not that we're hurting. We actually had one of our best years ever for signups and for growth, and I think the programs are running well, and we're trying to shake it up and be more involved. But there's still gaps. There's still some dead zones. Like you have your kind of pulse on the neck because you're around. You're moving around. Especially salespeople probably have the best gauge of industry of anybody because they really see all the different wheels. What's something that we could do better?
You know what? I don't think that it's even necessarily something we're not doing a good job of, but I think we need to do more. But it's not even us. Like, it's not unique to us, but there's still, and it's got to sound like a broken record, but just the push to getting more younger people involved in the welding and in schools, and like from high school up, or somehow we need to like convey that welding is cool. which it is, and like no one knows what it is, right? So and I think there's still really that perception of everyone, the first thought of welding, and I blame, like, a lot of advertising does this too, because they see welding and it's a picture of like sparks flying everywhere and smoke and all this
some
kind of
super
stuff.
greasy person in a really dangerous place. And
it's like, it's not what it has to be. It's
it can be if you like that, but
it
there's
can be,
not
for sure.
but that's not all of it.
No, so I think that's the thing, and I've been following a lot of the things going on in the States, and like the weld scientist Nate, and what he's doing now, and I just listened to him on the Arc Junkies podcast, actually, with what they're doing, and it's like, that's a cool idea. And I think we're doing it because, even our chapter last year, we had a bunch of our events and our donations went to 2 local high schools, because we're like, we have this money, let's give it to the high school.
Yeah, and we just started a whole new program just to get money into high schools. Yeah.
And it's funny, I talked to my wife about this the other night too. I was telling her that, hey, we're doing this, and she went, there's welding in high schools? And like, because our high school, we didn't have it. So even for
neither
me in
did
high
mine.
school, I didn't know about welding. So it's not, I guess it's just not known. And we are doing a good job, but I think that's just, we just have to do better, because it's welding's not going away, but the people are getting older, and now being in that sales role and seeing it every single place that I go, everywhere
needs people
is hiring. Everywhere is hiring for welders, and they can't they can't keep people interested because maybe the shops are out of date with what they're doing. So when the guys come into the shop, it's like, and I've got this old CV equipment that's 30 years old, and it sparks are flying everywhere and everything's falling apart.
Yeah, if you're not willing
Okay.
to upkeep your shop or invest in your shop, are you going to invest in me, right?
Exactly. So I think that's is trying to just keep raising that awareness and keep raising that, like, or getting that help into the younger generation and even into shops somehow to
Hmm. There was a lot more shop involvement with the CWB. Well, this is back then the CWA. When I was young, I worked for companies where they'd be like, "Hey, there's a thing coming up." They put up a poster, and everyone try to
yeah
go to this thing,
yeah
and I don't see that type of engagement as much anymore. And I'm not sure why. I think maybe just a cultural shift. Like maybe we just aren't the same type of people. Like like Gen Zs, Millennials,
yeah
and even the tail end of Gen X. We started becoming very introverted as a culture, right?
yeah
We stopped with just the mass hangouts. It would be like just group hangouts, people
yeah
or and so I think it's tougher to sell that, but I think it's starting to come back. And the schools is another thing that we're fighting with hard. We have pushed so much into schools, and I just came through a run of my own where my kids went through high school, and now they're both graduated and then they're both done college, but I was chapter chair when they were going to high school in my city. And
yeah
I was the one making the documents, sending it to the guidance counselors. And then I'd ask my kids, "Did you get that?" No. "Did you hear anything about it?" No. I
no,
sent all the information to the career fair. I sent it to the school board. Did it filter down? No. Ask my friends who's had kids in schools. Did it go to that school? Schools that even have welding programs. Like,
right
no, we didn't hear. So it's like, okay, so we're not getting past some type of a gate. There's like a gatekeeper that is saying,
yeah
oh, you want to talk about being a lawyer? Yeah, come on in. You want to talk about being a veterinarian? Come on in. You want to talk about being a welder? No, sorry, you stay on that
yeah
side of the fence. And I don't. That's a tough barrier to cross.
I agree, and I would agree with that for sure. It just seems like there's something that is just holding it back from actually like getting that access that we need to get in there and show people what we do, and um why it's so important, right? And why we need this trade to keep going, and why
Hmm.
we got to get people involved. And it is actually a cool trade in what we're doing, right? So
And it
it's
pays really well.
yeah, it can for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
even if
definitely
even
can.
though and people are like, well, not all welding jobs pay well. Well, even the ones that don't pay well still pay well.
Pay
Like
all
I mean,
right. They pay
yeah,
all
like I
right.
mean,
Yeah,
what are you talking about, man? Like,
exactly. Yeah,
all right. So that's pretty much, I think, the interview. That was a ton of awesome information. It's really interesting to see all the different things you did and how you worked with these different companies and kind of, you kind of got the gamut of knowledge. Now, for you going forward, what's kind of your role now? What do you see yourself, 5 years from now at Lincoln, 10 years from now at Lincoln? What do you see yourself growing into? And then also in terms of your involvement with either the CWB Association or other organizations.
yeah. I mean, I know I would like to stick around with Lincoln for a while because it's such a cool. I get a lot of exposure to so many different things, and it's kind of keeping my welding nerd happy inside because there's so much innovation that we are doing for everything. So it's a really cool thing. So I mean, in the next 5 years, still doing what I'm doing, I've gained a pretty cool interest in like the business side of things again, which is
Mm-hmm.
again just like different doors and routes. Like being in taking welding courses in college and not thinking that, hey, when I'm approaching 40, I'm going to be let's look at business and let's think about this. I'd be like, no, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're going to be a welder. So that kind of thing, and there's always opportunities to move up within Lincoln, and it's a great company for that and supporting internal growth. So some kind of internal growth would be great. And then as far as the CWB goes, still just promoting, and I think that now uh, hopefully we're getting back to some kind of in-person events for our
Mm-hmm.
chapters, and that we can get out and do more of these things. And even FabTech Canada just this past year was goofy, the amount of people that were there, but I think it
Mm-hmm.
was just everyone was just ready to come out and see people and see welding and see a trade show again, right? So
It was a lot of fun.
uh,
Yeah.
it was, yeah, it was good. so yeah, that for me, just to keep being involved in the welding industry, and I'm gonna actually take my little guys are asking about it now a little bit more because they're getting a little bit older. So I'm gonna, before they go back to school next week, I got to take them in and show them some welding. I'll get them all suited up and start the addiction early.
Yeah, good. Good. The
Yeah,
next
yeah.
breed. I tried with both my kids. Neither of them went that way, but I tried. Oh, did I try?
Yeah, I'll try. We'll see how it goes, and
Yeah.
maybe I can, the cool robotic stuff that I used to swear off, but now it's a cool avenue. So yeah,
Oh, awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show here with us. And, if anyone has any interest in what's going on with Lincoln or information about even the Lincoln aluminum stuff that's going in Ontario, send us an email. I can pass it along to Michael and he can answer any questions because I don't think a lot of people know the investment Lincoln has made into Canada and into, this aluminum lab. I didn't know, and I know quite a bit. So like it was
yeah.
even new to me. So, I think that this is something very interesting and super positive.
Our steel too. We've got a steel wire manufacturing in Canada as well. There's a
Yeah.
lot of Canadian manufacturing from Lincoln. We've done a lot to keep that here. So
Awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
I appreciate you taking the time, man.
thanks a lot, Max.
Any shout outs for anybody?
Ah, yeah. Well,
No.
thanks Daniela for getting me into this, and it was a lot of fun though. I'm glad we finally made it work. So yeah,
All right, perfect, man. Well, I hope you had lots of fun, and for all the people that have been listening, make sure to do your research and remember that there's so many avenues to welding. There's
yes,
so many different paths you can take. That that initial path that you take when you sign up for a welding school does not mean that you're going to be helmet down for the rest of your life. It can be a
exactly.
bazillion things.
And hey, join the CWB and get involved because you will meet so many people and
Hmm.
interact with so many different options, and you'll be able to network, and there's so many jobs and connections that come out of these chapter events and conferences. So
Hmm.
do that.
Awesome. Thanks for the plug, buddy. Yeah.
Thank
So I
you.
hope everyone signs up for CWBAssociation.org. It's free. And also keep tuning in for the podcasts. We are keeping them coming. Season 3 is rolling along awesome. So creeping towards our 100th episode here. And I really appreciate everyone that's been downloading and following us here. So take care, and we'll see you at the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed the show.